began in the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the All-Wise, True and Living God. We are those who recognize that the God of the Scriptures, the God of the prophets, the God of creation, literally appeared to us in person, as the Scriptures teach that God would come.
Yes, sir.
But if you notice, the Scriptures don't speak of God coming in the form of some type of spirit or apparition, as believers in religion have been assuming.
Yes, sir.
But the Scriptures refer to God in many instances as He, as even the Son of a man, and even the Son of a woman. So we thank God for His coming in the person of Master Farid Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. But He didn't just come, as the Scriptures teach, but He would do a magnificent work of raising one who would become His second self, raising one who would become His messenger Messiah. And that messianic figure that I speak of is the man that most of Black America totally missed, and that is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But since we missed the truth, since we missed the man, since we missed the remarkable majesty of God in our midst, God in His mercy, in His love, and in His wisdom extended Himself in the personage of our brother and friend, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So brothers, sisters, this morning let me greet you again. Assalamu alaikum. I hope and pray that you are doing well and that you are in good spirits, because we have a very important talk we would like to share with you today. But before we get into that, I would be remiss if I did not thank and show appreciation to the house that developed me and is still developing me, and the father of this particular house, who is my brother and father in this ministry, if you will, our brother that you just heard, Student Minister Anthony Muhammad. Let's give him a well-deserved round of applause. I'm so thankful because under his tutelage, I and several others have been blessed to grow in this ministry and do exactly what he suggested. Start paying attention to details.
Yes, sir.
Because it's those details that have been, that we have overlooked, which is why we missed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the first place, and all the magnificent truths and solutions that he brought, because we overlooked the details. Our subject today is the attack on Black thinking. Now, I, speaking to intelligent people, don't have to let you know that Black people have been under attack. I mean, that goes without saying, right?
Yes, sir.
We see the police brutality. We see our sisters all over the country being trafficked, kidnapped, beat up. Hello, somebody. We see Black men being put in jails. We don't even have to deal with that. We know that we've been attacked, but we want to zone in to be a little more specific and discuss this attack literally on Black minds, on our thinking, because our thinking and the way we think literally determines pretty much all of our actions. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
So we want to initiate this particular talk today by starting with some relevant scriptures that we hope to kind of give us the right frame of mind as we engage in this discussion, followed by words from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, along with empirical data, along with historical research, so that we can start connecting the dots and put everything together, if that makes sense. One of the first scriptures I want to look at is from the book of Revelation. Now, in religion, we've always been taught that the devil is a lie, right?
Yes, sir.
But unlike people like you and me, the devil don't just lie about little stuff. See, we may lie about stuff when we're trying to impress people. You know, we're talking about, yeah, you got all these cars in my garage, you know, my Corvette in the shop, but you know. See, those are our lies. But the devil's lies affect the entire planet. Okay? So this is why the scriptures refer to him as one, this Satan who deceives the whole world. That's heavy right there. Now you might deceive your friends. You might deceive a small group. And heck, if you're a really good liar, you may deceive a whole lot of people in different cities. But this Satan, he deceived the whole world, which is why the scriptures in the book of 2 Corinthians refers to this entity as the God of this world who blinds the minds of the people. That's some juice.
Yes, sir.
You can't be no lightweight devil or Satan if you have this type of influence, and the scriptures say specifically that the God of this world, this Satan, blinds the minds of the people. He's given further characteristics in the Holy Quran where this Satan figure is having a conversation with the God.
Think about it.
And God says, okay, I'm going to give you a little time to rule. I'm going to give you a respite. And Satan replies, okay, but in this little period that I'm going to have time to rule, I'm going to go before your people. I'm going to go from behind them, from their left, from their right, in every direction, through every avenue of life. At every turn, I'm going to get to your people, and Satan says you won't find most of them even grateful. But here's the thing I want us to think about. This is not just some religious talk, because if this Satan, as described in these scriptures, is like that with this type of juice, then in realistic terms, he would literally have to have control over the various industries that influence the thinking of the people. Makes sense? So if he's the God of this world and deceive the whole world, he would have to have control over media and mass information. He would have to have control over educational curriculum and the pedagogy of education of this world. He would have to have control over religion. Uh-oh. He would have to have so much influence that every entity that influences the thinking of the people, he would have to have control over. But even though the scriptures describe Satan with all this kind of juice and power, the scripture also refers to a day that somebody, a Messiah figure, would be raised by God to do away with all of that influence. And the primary weapon that God's Messiah would have would be not a bazooka, the truth. So the truth is just that powerful that Satan's entire existence and world domination is threatened by that preacher of truth. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the ultimate aim of this world is to destroy the preacher of truth and those who follow him. Because that one lets you know not only who you truly are, because when you find out who you truly are as the people of God, you will take your rightful place. But he also lets you know who the enemy of God is that you didn't know of until he started making the enemy known. So let me start with some words from that preacher of truth who made the enemy known to help frame our discussion. We see all this mental anguish and just Islamophobia taking place in the world, a hatred for black people and Muslims. And there is a direct connection to that too, by the way. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad explained it and encapsulated it in a simple phrase, really, simple sentence. He stated in Our Savior Has Arrived that the resurrection of the mentally dead black people brings about the anger of those, the white man who runs everything, who put the black man to mental death. So the greatest fear and the anger that you see taking place, and this didn't start with no Trump, just so you know, white folks been hating you since before Trump. Trump just happens to be one of those who are bold enough to not care about being politically correct about it. So this anger that you see, that's always been there, it is because you, black folks, are starting to wake up. And this awakening angers and strikes fear in those. So they want to kill you and destroy you before you ever even get a chance to wake up. So this is no satanic spirit that hops in somebody's mind and, you know, causes you to do all this stuff that Hollywood would like to portray Satan as. This is a real devil we're dealing with right here. But those who come to expose the devil are able to pinpoint exactly what specific group are behind this worldwide manipulation. This is where the Honorable Minister Farrakhan comes in. He stated, and this is why you don't have too many leaders, black, white, or anything of international or national reputation, willing to pinpoint the real culprits behind this mass deception. He stated, and he let it be known, look, I don't hate Jewish people now. Just make that straight. I'm not anti-Semitic or none of that. You can put that down. He said, what I hate is the degree of control that they exercise over black intellectual and cultural expressions. Now, most of us would, as intelligent people, we would not want to believe that anybody has control or tremendous influence over how we think. You know, our pride, and because you know you're intelligent people, it becomes difficult to accept something like this. Especially when you don't see those persons actually doing the controlling and the influencing. So when you hear the minister say something like this, oh, you might dismiss it. You might disregard it because you know that in your intelligence and you've worked hard to do what you do, to think the way you think, but there are other influencing factors that contribute to the way we think and what we think about.
Yes, sir.
Minister Farrakhan pinpointed the specific entity most influential over black intellectuals, black expressions on a worldwide level, and he recognized it as so-called members of the Jewish community. Now, is he right or is he wrong? Well, let's look at what the Jews say about their own influence over world opinions, over religion, over education. You heard Minister Farrakhan use this quote as he was quoting one of the leading Jewish leaders and scholars, Dr. Harold Brackman, over the Simon Wiesenthal Center on the West Coast. Very powerful Jewish organization who influenced curriculum and education, by the way. So Dr. Harold Brackman suggested and stated that the Babylonian Talmud, which is the Jewish laws and codes and interpretation that the satanic Jews go by, not the good Jews, but the satanic Jews. The Jews follow the Torah and strive to live according to it. But the satanic Jews act like they follow the Torah. They quote the Torah, but what they actually follow and go by is the Babylonian Jewish Talmud, which dates back well over 1,000 years, that is comprised of codes, interpretations, laws, and ethics that govern Jewish behavior. But be mindful, this Talmud is not just something that influences that Jews believe. No, these again are codes that influence world systems, world industries, Hollywood, education, law enforcement, finance, politics, social behaviors. So Dr. Brackman, a Jew, mind you, stated that the Babylonian Talmud was the first source to read a Negrophobic content. Negrophobic obviously means anti-black. So notice, people talk about racism and this system of racism. Now, according to the Jewish scholars, they didn't say that it was one of the first. They didn't even say that it was an early source. What does Mr. Brackman call it? The first source from his research now, and he knows about the Talmud, mind you. He says that the Jewish Talmud was the first source to read this anti-black sentiments into the episode by stressing Canaan's fraternal connections with Cush. The Talmudic glosses of the episode added the stigma of blackness to the fate of enslavement that Noah predicted for Ham's progeny. So this is what you have in religion that has poisoned the world of religion, called the curse of Ham. It is a deliberate misinterpretation of the Torah, but in the Talmud, they are the ones, the Jewish rabbinical leaders and scholars are the ones that lied and said that this refers to black people, that Ham's progeny refers to black people in Africa who are thereby cursed. And because these black people are cursed by God, we can do any and everything to them. So that it is this fundamental belief of the Jewish Talmud, this fundamental racist belief that has influenced the world of Judeo-Christian Christianity, has even influenced the world of Islam in the Arab world. Because as Brackman said, it is the first source to read this negrophobic content. And since it's the first source, it has literally influenced the entire world. Y'all, we're talking about the attack on black thinking. Y'all still with me? All right, all right. So has this Talmudic racism influenced policies of the world? Now be mindful, it was that false belief that justified the transatlantic slave trade. The idea that black people are cursed, that poison religions, that made it easy to justify your racism. It became easy to rape a black woman. It became easy to pillage African villages, steal and take their resources, because at the back of their mind, these niggas are cursed. And that mindset has trickled down even in 2019. Now, most of us living in this day and age, you may not hear about this curse of Ham per se as much anymore, perhaps only in settings like this. But did you know that grandmama and them, when they went to church, even some of your parents, this has been taught in the black church? Not as an isolated thing where maybe a church here or a church there. No, this became standard belief in the black church. Just so you know that. So let's bring it up a little bit in history to 1832, where we're looking at Senator Henry Berry in the Virginia House of Delegates. Now be mindful, 1832, this is like a few months after the Nat Turner insurrection, okay? So white powers of America are alarmed. After the Nat Turner insurrection, and there were others too, they're like, oh, you know what, we need to do something about these Negroes. So in the Virginia House of Delegates, which by the way, at that time was the most powerful legislative body in America, this is before the Senate and the House of Representatives really grew into the form that it currently is in today. So you're dealing with policymakers. You're dealing with visionaries who are discussing what are we going to do with these black people. So Senator Henry Berry voices the consensus of the fellow senators when he stated, and listen carefully because these are visionaries who set policies in place. He stated, we, white folks, have as far as possible closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. Look, again, you must have some serious juice now if you are that confident that you have ensured that you have closed every possible avenue whereby the light of truth may actually enter black people's minds. Is he wrong? Maybe we don't know. But he further gives details that clarify why they're so confident in making such a claim. They said that if we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. If we could just make sure that these black people are in such a condition that if the light of truth actually came to them, they would reject the light. They won't even have the ability to recognize the light. Then we as white folk, our work would be complete.
Think about it.
So these founding fathers of the American Republic are setting up systems, policies, laws that influence every avenue: religion, media, education, finance, politics. Why the scripture said that he's the God of this world who deceives what? The whole world. And then you know what he said? To further ensure that our work is complete as white folks, to make sure these black folks never wake up. If we do all of this, they would then be on a level with the beasts of the field. And we as white folk, we'll be safe. He wasn't speaking for 1832. He was speaking in 1832, but he was speaking for their progeny. He was speaking for 2019 and beyond. Praise is due to Allah. So safeguarding white supremacy. When we see you with your ratchetness, when we see you with your criminal behavior, when we see you as this bestial behavior, when we see you proud to call yourself a savage, when you proud and call yourself, I'm a hoe, I'm a bitch. What? See, you safeguard white supremacy when you do that crap. This black on black crime, the foolish gang violence, and the foolish codes that we go by. Well, they ain't snitching. You gonna let your house, your community, your family be destroyed, and you say that's snitching? Oh, if we could extinguish their capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. We don't have to be directly involved in their community. We don't have to put the guns in there ourselves. We don't have to bring the dope in ourselves. We got them niggas set. And at the root of this can be traced to the Jewish Babylonian Talmud that influences the codes, influences the laws, influences the religious beliefs. So if that is what safeguards white supremacy, then you know what threatens white supremacy and their power structure? Black discipline, black love, truth. So as all the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, all of them, Thomas Jefferson said, I fear for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever. See, they knew that they'd had their niggas in check, excuse my expression, unless some type of light came from out of the place. So when the Nation of Islam initiated in Detroit in the 1930s, it sparked alarm to white authorities. Here you have an unarmed group of black people who cleaned up the mess that white America has made, who disciplined black criminals, took the prostitutes off the streets and made them upstanding women to be respected before the world. It's the Nation of Islam that gave you the people you claim to admire, the Malcolm X's, the Muhammad Ali, the Farrakhan. You ain't had nothing like the Nation of Islam. You wonder why they don't let you talk about it in your so-called institutions of higher learning. But look, I want to give you a little more historical context to let you know the mindset of those who rule. The mindset of this satanic system that we are in. So this is from the American slave codes. Now, as you know, the American slave codes were basically like unwritten. They were written, but they were, in a sense, unwritten laws. They weren't the official laws that you can go to the library and see, but they were the codes that people go by. So as they were talking about the possibility of slavery being abolished in America, white leaders had to make sure that, okay, we can free these Negroes on paper, but we're going to have to maintain our control and our authority. That's the way Satan thinks now. So this is just one little excerpt of the slave codes published by William Goodell in 1853. He states, "It remains to be observed that this claim of property of slaves, both in theory and practice, both in belief and in actual facts, as defined by legislation and jurisprudence, as defended by theologians, and as sanctioned by ecclesiastical bodies. So these Negroes are going to remain our property in both belief and in practice, and this will be sanctioned in both political bodies, law enforcement bodies, as well as sanctioned by ecclesiastical bodies." What's ecclesiastical? Religion. Education, all of that. So this goes right along with Henry Berry's words, right? We're going to close every avenue by which light may enter your mind. The God of this world, Satan, who blinds the minds of the people. He continues. It's going to be justified by political and ecclesiastical bodies as carried out into everyday practice by the pious and the profane. So this is something that every white man is responsible for. Whether you are the pious, you are the prudent, you are the rich, the wealthy, you know, the religious, you know, you're considered morally upright, the pious white man, as well as the profane, even the little scroungy redneck, the poor white man. All of you have an obligation to keep these Negroes in check. By the way, did y'all ever learn this in school? No, sir. Oh, okay. Maybe the God of this world has control over the educational pedagogy taking place in these American education. But he says, is manifestly and notoriously a claim, like a claim of property, yes, sir, not only to the bodies and the physical energies of the slave, but also his immortal soul, his human intelligence, his moral powers. So we know that we own these black folks in terms of their bodies and the work that they provide. But you have to understand that you not only own their bodies, you own their soul, man. You own their mind and their intelligence, even their moral powers. When they think they're doing right, they think they're doing good, their conscience of good and evil, you own all of that because you're the white man. See, I'm giving you this historical context so you can understand the systemic level of racism taking place in this society. These are not isolated events. You see the dude beating up a black girl. That's not isolated. That's what he's supposed to do. That's Satan's world. Now, I don't think that was just something written in 1853. Because remember, your soul belongs to them. You have all of these degrees. We've been blessed to acquire these degrees, and you worked hard for them, and you've earned them. Qualified you to do important stuff. You're a surgeon. You know, you've attended Ivy League schools, and you've been sanctioned. But remember, you have to go through them to be conferred upon by these degrees. See, they own your intelligence in their mind. Are we making sense to you, brothers and sisters? Praise is due to Allah. Now, this is what gets me. We're still in 2019. And black folks don't even think it's nothing, the fact that we're still wearing the slave master's name. Now, in the Nation of Islam, this is like so fundamental to us that we don't even think about it no more. You know what I mean? But one of the first things we do in the Nation of Islam is that we are blessed to give the slave master his name back. And we accept names of God. Oh, yes. So one of the characteristics of slavery and ownership and possession is in the name. When you buy a car, you put it in your name. When you buy a house, you put it in your name. Because a name denotes ownership. So here we are in 2019. My name is Jesse Kyles. My name is, might even have a conscious name. My name is Raheem Williams. Like, what the heck? But a name denotes ownership. It denotes possession. So by the fact that we still wear the names of Satan, we are literally possessed by the devil. Don't talk to a thinking person and you telling me to be possessed by the devil means some demon hopping you, got your head spinning around, you throwing up green vomit, crawling up the damn wall like they do in the movies. Hell no, man. You possessed by the mere fact that you're wearing the cracker's name. See, that's real religion right there. You want to preach that religious crap to me, talk about come and be delivered. And they own your soul, man. So, and if you were a runaway slave, they make sure they knew whose property you are. Not only would they give you their name, but they would brand you with your name to make sure it's known just in case you try to run away. In fact, that's where you get the term brand name from. Think about how crazy we are. Here we are in 2019 when we were forced to be branded with the slave master's names, and now we turn around, sometimes pay hundreds of dollars to wear somebody else's brand name. Message. All praise is due to Allah. But because they feel as though they own you. And to a degree they do. That's why God comes, y'all. So don't you know, because that Talmudic expression, that first source of negrophobic content has affected the whole world, its laws and policies, they even through education and their pseudoscience in America, don't you know that they literally attributed your desire to be free as a slave as some type of disease? So if you are a black person and you even desire to be free of white control, it's something wrong with you. That's a disease that they literally call drapetomania. Not only is something wrong with you as though you have a disease for wanting to be free, but it was immoral. It was immoral of you. So you wonder why the white power structure gets so upset over even little things that challenge their authority. Now, I'm baffled just with the little, all Colin Kaepernick did was take a knee. He took a knee. How? I mean, that's one of the most peaceful expressions of protest that I could think of. When people get on their knee, they bow down and they're submitting to you. But even in the most submissive, kind-hearted element of protest, there was an outrage by who? The white power structure. The white NFL owners were in an uproar. I did say owners, right? So just the mere fact that black folks said, you know what, we're losing our lives so much. They just said black lives matter. How non-threatening is that? That's like saying, you know what, I think I want to love myself and take care of myself. How dare you? All lives matter. You don't have the right to think for yourself. We're talking about the attack on black thinking. Did I mention that? Yeah, okay. So if the power structure would be that adamant about people with such peaceful protests, what the hell you think they think about the Nation of Islam, who ain't taking no knee, but who've been standing up, fighting, and calling out this Satan for all of this time? So in their mind, their number one, if you will, threat is the Nation of Islam. Yes, there are so many other leaders and whatnot, but remember, the nation is like the total package. They disciplining these folks, you know, they have an order, they have somewhat of a military order. They ain't scared of us. They think outside of our frame of mind. They don't utilize our pedagogical tactics in education. Big word, right? They don't follow our stuff. In fact, they rebel and they trying to call us out. They don't even use our names anymore. The audacity of these black people. So Satan, the god of this world, who's deceived the whole world, their effort has always been to block the light and blind the minds of the people, as the scripture says. How do they block the light? How do they blind the minds of the people? They really blinded the minds of the world, but especially black folks. One of the ways in the book of Revelation, Satan is described as the accuser of our brethren. He's a liar, but he doesn't just lie. He accuses our brethren, God's people. Anybody that stands up against Satan, he's going to accuse you of something. So look at the history of every progressive black man or woman that stood up to enlighten us to the atrocities of our enemy and try to help us do something for ourselves. Oh, I'm reminded of Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Here's a man who became at that time the most powerful black man in America. And he was acting outside of white folks' frame of mind. So white folks, Jewish leaders in particular, brought up false charges on Marcus Garvey, trumped up charges on him, took him to court full of Jewish prosecutors with a Jewish judge named Julian Mack, who did away and deported our brother. Satan, the accuser of our brother. Ida B. Wells, right here in this city. Powerful sister. More powerful than half the men back in her day. Oh, yeah. When other black folks were kowtowing, when they saw the lynchings taking place, she said, oh, hell no, boo-boo. Okay, I'm being a little fancy. But that's the spirit she had. I know it. In my spiritual imagination, I know she was doing a little more than that, matter of fact. But look, she stood up against the lynchings. Not just here in Memphis, but all over the country. And don't you know who came against her? The white man, naturally, ran her out of the city. Satan, the accuser of our brethren. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, who had already caught the enemy's attention as early as 1930. Government authorities had already started surveillancing when they saw the mere fact that black folks were being cleaned up. That was cause for alarm for white authorities. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and many believers had been arrested several times since the 30s. And in 1942, the FBI, led by the Anti-Defamation League, one of the most powerful Jewish organizations in America, who advises the FBI, who feeds and trains all law enforcement agencies in America. The ADL led the FBI to bombard and arrest the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and over 80 other brothers out of the temples of the Nation of Islam. Why? Because they was telling a truth that threatened Satan's power. Satan, the accuser of our brethren. Malcolm X, whom we love. We know how powerful Malcolm was, but don't you know Malcolm, when he was living, was considered the #1 anti-Semite according to Jewish leadership? Malcolm X, who spoke out against not just white powers, but particularly the Jewish element of white powers and their control over black thinking. Oh, they don't let you hear that part of Malcolm X, huh? Satan, the accuser of our brethren. And just as a side note, when Malcolm was killed in the Audubon Ballroom, he was under Jewish custody because Jews had owned the Audubon Ballroom and were working in direct cahoots with the New York Police Department. Another topic for another time, but let me let that marinate for a while as we move forward. How does he blind the minds of the people? He deceives the whole world. Now, according to one of the most prominent Jews authors in terms of the Jewish Hollywood factor and in media, he wrote a book called An Empire of Their Own, discussing the tremendous Jewish influence over Hollywood, over the entertainment industry, and how it really started in America through Hollywood, through families of white Jews. He states, the Hollywood Jews, this is a Jew talking now, Neil Gabler, the Hollywood Jews created a powerful cluster of images and ideas, so powerful that in a sense, they colonized the American imagination. I think that's some powerful language to use right there. See, now, if you say that Jews control Hollywood, what they gonna call you? Anti-Semitic. Black folks are not even allowed to say that publicly. Why? Because remember, they own you. They own your intelligence. They own your soul. So they can say it, but you can't say it. You talk about an insult to somebody's intelligence, boy. So they admit that they have tremendous influence over what? The American imagination. So your creative thinking, your ability to think and create and express. Isn't that what Mr. Farrakhan said in the previous slide? That the Jews are the greatest controllers over black intellectuals and cultural expression? Because who runs the media? Remember, if Satan is the god of this world who blinds the minds of the people and deceives the whole world, he would have to have influence over the industries that influence the thinking of the people. I hope you're connecting the dots here. If you're still thinking of this Satan as being some spooky spirit that hop in you, I mean, that's you, do you. But if you want to tie the scriptures to real life, I hope you're thinking with me. But he didn't just say they influenced the American imagination. Mr. Gabler said they colonized. Yeah. How do they blind the minds of the people? I'm reminded of a scripture in the book of Psalms, the 94th chapter. It asks really a rhetorical question. It says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee? The throne of iniquity, the power structure, the wicked power structure. Should they have fellowship with you, the people of God? But it didn't stop there in this rhetorical question. It says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law? See, Satan frames his mischief and justifies it with laws, policies, ethics, rules. I mean, just remember, you were slaves according to the law. And you're still slaves according to the law. Right? So it's justified. So even though it may be totally immoral, totally contradictory to the law of God, Satan, the white man, always justifies his wrong with something based on the law he created. Trump, all the boys, you know how they always get off with stuff? At best, they may get a little, slap on the hand for doing major atrocities. Don't you know all your presidents have killed millions around the world? Including Obama, especially killing the darker people throughout the world. But the president, see, the wicked who frameth mischief by law. So they use laws to justify their existence and power of white supremacy. And all of those laws, as I alluded to earlier, zone in mostly on those like the Nation of Islam. Don't you know, and you'll never learn this in school, right now, a living legend, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, did you know that there has never been the efforts that the most powerful government in the world has put forth to keep people just from listening and thinking to what one man has to say? Unprecedented. You wonder why people, our students, say high school, and even some college students, never even heard of the minister. That's amazing. But I understand it. Now be mindful, y'all. The U.S. Senate, the most powerful legislative body in the world. Did you know that in the mid-'80s, the all-white U.S. Senate voted to officially condemn and censor Minister Farrakhan? Based on a strict lie that they couldn't prove? Show you how powerful the Jews are. The Jews, all they had to do was tell the white Senate, Farrakhan is an anti-Semite. They didn't have to prove nothing. They could just lie. And based on that, the all-white U.S. Senate, the most powerful legislative body in the world, mind you, condemned and officially censored our brother. Now, you know when an official censor, you know what that means? That means they don't want anybody to hear what this person has to say. Not only that, in the mid-'80s, the U.S., the most powerful government in the world, along with some of its allies in the UK, literally banned Minister Farrakhan from physically visiting the UK. You ain't never heard this about a man, no criminal record. And it would insult your intelligence, y'all. You know what their justification was? If you were to read the laws of why the British Crown and the UK Parliament and all of these people, what their justification was? We believe that Minister Farrakhan would do something bad to the social good of the UK. Really? Now, here's a man that has nothing but a record of cleaning up the mess that America has made, mind you. No criminal record. But you believe that he's detrimental to the social good of the UK. What that really means is that he threatens white supremacy of the UK, just so we understand that. But hold up, UK, people literally go to the UK to engage in promiscuous sex. Prostitution is legal in Amsterdam. People go to Amsterdam to do drugs. But you don't want this black man to come. And look, I'm so glad some of you are here because you might not know this. They are so desperate. This is unprecedented. Just a little over a year ago, the black people in London were getting together, black people, not just Muslims, you had Christians, Rastafarians, community organizers. They were holding like a rally in a park in London. And during this particular rally, they were going to live stream the voice and image of Minister Farrakhan, who was going to deliver a brief message to the people of the UK. The British government was so enthralled by the mere fact that black people would even listen to him that they passed a law immediately, and it's on record, stating that they cannot have a live stream viewing of Minister Farrakhan, nor a recorded video of Minister Farrakhan, nor an audio being played of Minister Farrakhan, nor any pictures of him in that park at that time, nor anybody speaking on his behalf. We're talking about the attack on black thinking. Never has these type of efforts been done to a man, black or white. So if you wonder why the people don't hear about Farrakhan, that's why. Because Satan is so afraid. And look, their efforts didn't stop there. Even now, because after 9/11, you know, there was a complete media blackout of Minister Farrakhan. Even though after 9/11, September 11th, Minister Farrakhan was still the most vocal leader, black or white, in exposing the atrocities of the American government and awakening black people. But because we had no access to the media and they blocked the minister out of the media, the people, many thought Minister Farrakhan had died. Those of us in the nation, I'm certain you can bear witness that for a long time people started asking, hey, well, what happened to Brother Farrakhan, man? Is he still alive? What? He was doing his thing, but there was no coverage of it. That was the media strategy. They realized that with all the lies that they would tell on him in the media, it always worked in his favor. Because they lies, look, truth is just so powerful, man. They realized that, okay, this tactic not working. So the next thing we have to do is out of sight, out of mind. And unfortunately, it did work a little bit. But then social media started catching on. And Minister Farrakhan was convinced by some of his staff to go ahead and create a social media profile. And then he messed around and got on the Breakfast Club in 2015 with Charlamagne the God and Angela Yee and the folks. And for the first time in nearly 20 years, young people were able to see and hear Minister Farrakhan. And they liked what they saw and heard too, by the way. So that was a new explosion. The minister was released from that false prison of anti-Semitism. So in social media, he started gaining Twitter followers. Farrakhan on Facebook and the YouTube videos, they were like, whoa, you know? And this caught the enemy's attention. So if they passed all of these laws to keep people from listening and thinking to what this man has to say, you know they wasn't gonna just let him have these social media profiles. So on several occasions, they would swipe half of his followers away. Now the minister would have hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers. And then all of a sudden, 150,000 just wiped away. Oh, okay, that was strange, you know. And now the ADL and Jewish leaders, and I want you to hear this, they have inserted themselves into Silicon Valley and have positioned themselves as being the authority on what should be voiced online. So Facebook, which was started by Zuckerberg, who was Jewish, but now in Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, all of these social media platforms, they have the Jews determining what's hate speech. And so now they are blocking videos, blocking posts, taking down posts. Minister Farrakhan gave powerful lectures. You all remember just a few months ago in Detroit, he gave a powerful lecture when the Jews started straight up lying, saying he called Jews termites, See, they just lie. The devil is a lie, y'all. You know? And to make sure, like if you as intelligent people wanted to be like, you know what? He said that? Let me check it out and see if he really said that or not. You couldn't do that because they took down the video. They said it violated their hate speech terms. What? Now, y'all know your little brother for the past year or so has been producing little videos here and there, informative videos. I mean, I'm an educator. That's what I do. I teach. You know, I present facts. Can't you tell? Right? And in some of these informational videos, because it highlighted and exposed white Jewish wrongdoing, oh man, they restricted these videos. They didn't look. They couldn't disprove nothing we said. Nah, we're gonna have to take that down. You can't share this. You can't post that. What? So they're coming hard on social media. But this has always been their plan. Let me direct you to an ADL memorandum back from the 90s as Jewish leaders were discussing what to do with Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. They stated the ADL is not going to make Farrakhan go away. Damn right. What we can do and should do is impose an obligation on those who deal with him. Are y'all picking up on the terms? See, we can't stop Farrakhan. We know that. But what we can do is impose an obligation on those who would associate with him. See, he's too powerful. We can't stop the truth he's speaking. But if any of these black leaders that we do control want to be friends with him, you know, we can do something to them. We can punish them. As in the case of universities, trying to give them a platform. See, the minister was banned from even speaking at black colleges. He wasn't banned by the students. Wasn't banned by the presidents. The students and the people at the black colleges wanted Minister Farrakhan. But because even black colleges are financed by Jewish philanthropic organizations, got to a point where the minister was banned for nearly 20 years from even speaking at colleges, let alone black colleges. Now that's a hell of a lot of control over black thinking. Our subject is the attack on black thinking. In each case, the burden should be on those who give Farrakhan some measure of credibility to insist that he act responsibly and put a lid on his bigotry and anti-Semitism. See? We have to make sure we control these black leaders. Make sure they speak out against Minister Farrakhan, even when they don't want to. And many of our politicians have been pressured to do that, much to their dismay. Let me continue. We're talking about this Satan who blinds the minds of the people. So what do? They punish any association with the man of God. See, I'm so reminded of the scriptures. Now, everything I'm saying is not just recent history. Everything I'm saying, if you've been paying attention and if you have some knowledge of the scriptures, you will know that what's taking place is right out of the book, y'all. See, I'm reminded of in the scriptures when the Jewish leaders were so upset with the truth that Jesus was representing. It reminds me of how the Jewish leaders treat Farrakhan today. They knew, and even in the Bible, they said, you know what? We can't do nothing about this Jesus. He's doing these miracles. He's teaching this stuff. He's gaining the influence of the people. We can't do nothing about it. But that enraged them. See, just like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, it's your awakening, your resurrection that angers the white man. So the Jewish leaders, seeing what Jesus was doing and seeing what they couldn't do, they were losing their grip over the influence and control over the people because Jesus was standing in their way. So they plotted against him. They said, look, if we don't go after this man now, the whole world will go after him. So they plotted to kill Jesus. But not only that, they threatened anybody else from even acting like you like them. So in the book of John, it stated, but no one had the courage to speak favorably about him, talking about Jesus, in public. for they were afraid of getting in trouble with the Jewish leaders. Look, we ain't talking about nothing from 2,000 years ago, y'all. If you can't see what's taking place today, that is living the book. See, that's how the enemy has tricked us. That's how he has blinded the minds. He gave you religion. He gave you a Bible and scripture, but he twisted your mind to think that that's history. Look, these books are not history books. If you didn't know that, then you were part of the deception, as we all have been. These are books of prophecy. That's why they were revealed to people called prophets. Prophets prophesy. They speak of things that are to come in the future, but they use language and reference points of things in their day. So if the prophets were blessed by God to see all the tragedies taking place in America today, to see the world superpower, to see slavery, none of this existed during the days of the prophets. America did not exist. So when the prophets saw these things, they had to speak about it in language of their day. So since America didn't exist, and Egypt existed, so they talked about a people, God's people in bondage in Egypt, to a wicked president, Pharaoh, for 400 some odd years. And look at us, we're still looking back thinking that took place 4,000 years ago. When even your Jewish scholars tell you that no, that never existed. Prophecy. Who are this people of God that's been in bondage to a satanic Pharaoh for over 400 years? And since you fit that description, isn't God going to produce and raise a deliverer for you? Is that deliverer going to try to integrate with such a system? Or is he going to tell that system, let my people go? Y'all better get with the scriptures now. Don't tell me you believe in the scripture and you can't see what's going on today. Take your mind out of Spookville. History versus prophecy. So they were afraid of getting in trouble with the Jewish leaders to show you how hatred they are of our brother, Minister Farrakhan. This should let you know that he is not an ordinary man, by the way. The mere fact that so much attention, unprecedented attentions and target have been placed on this man and those who follow him, unlike never before, should show you something. That's how you know who the man of God is. How do you know Moses was the man of God? Based on the powerful satanic enemies that were against him. How do you know Jesus is the man of God? Based on the enemies. Man, I hope y'all with me. But they got people afraid to even act like you like the man in public. Y'all see how they acted at Aretha Franklin's funeral? The minister didn't even speak. All he did was sit down and listen to the program. Man, the white media was in an uproar. Who invited him? Why is he there? They were crazy over his presence, over looking at the man. Reminds me of the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about the minister and what God is doing for him. He said, whenever he tells you to go somewhere, you go. Whenever you see him, look at him. You see, it's something about his very image. There's power in his image. Power in his word, man. Look, I read about a man like that in the Bible whose image and his aura was so powerful that the most powerful satanic Jewish leaders of that time were afraid of his very presence and image. Just a spoken word from his lips would make blind folks see. Just the raise of his hand, I feel like preaching right about now, man. It's Sunday morning, man. He can make the lame walk. He was healing the sick. He cleansed the leper. You don't even hear about leprosy today, do you? See, leprosy was a disease that you read about in the Bible where people affected by it would be stricken. Their bodies would turn pale and white and would start to break down. Well, we don't hear about leprosy today, but there is a leprosy today. It's a more spiritual and mental leprosy that doesn't necessarily turn your skin and body white, but it blinds your minds and turns your mind white. You start thinking like white folks because they own your soul, they own your intelligence, they own your moral powers. And when you start taking on that white mind, you start to break down. But I know a man who can cleanse the leper. I hope somebody hear me today. Got the enemy so scared to even look at the man. Y'all see how the people were at the Aretha Franklin's funeral? Some of the so-called black leaders who were under Jewish influence were trying to avoid him. And look, this is what I found out. You know, I was blessed to get some inside scoop on what was going on behind the scenes. After Aretha Franklin's funeral, all those black celebrities that were there, they all started crowding around Minister Farrakhan, getting pictures with the minister. It was like he was the talk of the town, even though he didn't even speak. All of them, Fantasia, look, all of them. But some of the considered reputable black leaders walked over there to the crowd where people were crowding around Minister Farrakhan, and out of nowhere, at Aretha Franklin's funeral, stated, "Oh, I love the Jewish leader. I love the Jews now." No, for real. What did that have to do with the Aretha Franklin? But you felt so obligated to please your masters that during a time when we are honoring Aretha Franklin, our mother, the queen of soul, our auntie, so to speak, you know, because people were crowding around the minister and you wasn't crowding around as much, you let it be known. Look, I ain't with him now. I love the Jewish leaders. I love the Jews. But you lead black people. See, we got to be free from that kind of control. That's why the minister says the Jews are the greatest controllers of black minds and black intelligence. And he went on to say, and by the grace of God, I intend to break that control. So you wonder why the minister is the only one of our reputable leaders who actually goes in and pinpoints the real satanic force? See, this is why this is important. This is not to talk about certain Jews or whites or nothing like that. This is so important because it is only when you know who and what the devil is, who and what the enemy of our people is. That's the only way you can be free from their control. You know, I heard a preacher say one time, he said the best place for the devil to hide is the house of God. Because the devil is in control. He's the God of this world because the people don't know who or what devil is. We've been so twisted by religion, we think Satan is some spirit, some apparition that gets in us. As opposed to realizing that Satan is a real entity who just so happens to influence the thinking of God's people. So the minister traced some of the origins of this Negrophobic content, which, as we stated, was the Jewish Talmud, as Harold Brackman stated earlier. But you know, y'all remember just a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, one of Israel's leading rabbis was in a controversy because he referred to black people as monkeys. Did y'all hear about that? Now, this is one of Israel's leading rabbis. He meets with the Pope. He meets with all the presidents. Because remember, they influence world policies. This rabbi called black people monkeys, and they were like, whoa, look at that. Ooh, that was racist. But you know what? When he was questioned about it, it's not like he backed down. He was like, look, that's what we're taught. It's in the Talmud. What? See, and if you go back to the Talmud, which influences all of these industries, the Talmud, based on one of their leading Talmudic rabbis, Moses Maimonides. He's like one of the leading, greatest held Talmudic scholars. Moses Maimonides in the Talmud, he talked about how black people, Africans, according to Jews, they are not fully human. but they're also not fully monkeys or apes either. They're like in between monkeys and apes. They have some intelligence, but not quite like us. So they're part monkeys. Because remember that Talmudic curse of Ham? You curse. We can do whatever we want to you. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad already told you about that. This Talmud is part of what you read in our lessons as the forgotten tricknology. Huh? By the way, those who are visiting, our lessons refers to part of the curriculum that we go by in the Nation of Islam that was given to us by God in person to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Oh yeah. You come around, you're going to learn how that supreme wisdom. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught about this tricknology that is focused on mastering the original man. All that stuff we talked about and showed you, that's tricknology. Talmud, that affects the systems and whatnot. And it's the mindset, whether they show it outwardly or not. It is the mindset of those Jews, the same ones that call you their friend because they've suffered too and you've suffered and we're in the struggle together. And by the way, did you know that some of us walk with Dr. King down the street? They always want to bring that up. But don't you know, even in Birmingham, after that 63 bombing of the 16th Street Church, where our 4 beautiful little sisters were killed by a bomb, because black folks were receiving sympathy from all over the world, this affected certain members of the Jewish community right there in Birmingham, where their rabbi in Birmingham, Rabbi Milton Gaffney, was enraged over the fact that black folks receiving this type of love and sympathy from around the world. And it was then that he messed around and made the statement. Now, normally they are very good at not letting their sentiments get out. They are very good at hiding it. That's why the Talmud, you can't just go to a bookstore and buy a Talmud. You walk into the Bible bookstore, how much it is for them Talmuds, man? You know what I'm saying? It don't work like that, So Milton Grafman, the rabbi, he stated that the lives of 1,000 Negroes are not worth the hair on the head of one Jew. He didn't even say that 1,000 Negroes is worth the life of one Jew. He said that 1,000 Negroes not even worth the hair on the head of a Jew. That's Talmudic. They control black thinking. You ever notice how all of our so-called successful black people, whether it's Hollywood, things like that, they're always latched upon by Jewish agents, Jewish managers, Jewish producers, Jewish writers, Jewish advisors, so to speak. That's because they control even so-called black wealth. So anything independent of their control is considered a threat. I hate to say it, but many of our churches, you've been approved of. Many of our churches been approved of. That's another subject. But don't you know that leaders of the ADL, when they saw that black people were starting to do a Buy Black campaign and just support black businesses, this was in the 60s, right here in Tennessee. The Jewish leader of the ADL, Mr. Braverman at that time, he said that hell no, that's anti-Semitic. How dare you talk about doing some economic business without us? Black love, hell no, that's not permitted. That's anti-Semitic. That's nothing new. Since back in the day, Booker T. Washington, one of our great leaders, Booker T. Washington, who helped found Tuskegee Institute, he felt that black people needed to acquire property and build economic wealth for themselves. But you know who was one of the main opposers? It wasn't necessarily W.E.B. Du Bois, but helping advise W.E.B. Du Bois was a Jew, Joel Spingarn. If you don't know, Joel Spingarn is one of the Jews that actually started the NAACP with a little help from Du Bois and others. In fact, he ran the NAACP for several years as president. He was also a spy. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. These are your friends, right? But you know, when Booker T and others were talking about black people, we need to acquire more land, we need to do something for ourselves, it was Spingarn and the Jews who came out against Booker T. Washington. And this article right here is from 1914, where it was written in the paper, I think a black publication. He said, it's very noticeable, however, that wherever a meeting is held of this kind, some unknown white man attacks Dr. Washington in regard to his supposed attitude in encouraging the colored people to get property and money. So we're talking about this Satan who blinds the minds of the people, the God of this world, who are so influential that they even control black movements, y'all. Black movements that you thought were organic, you know, we've gone through this before, but the civil rights struggle, many of our black, so-called black organizations, the NAACP, Urban League, those that were started in the early 1900s with Jews. Yes, sir. Jews made sure that as these organizations were established, they followed a philosophy called non-economic liberalism, which basically meant that you black people, you can protest, you can focus on changing laws on paper, even though they're not going to change the attitude. You can focus on protesting. In fact, we Jews, we will give you the sign so that you can go and protest and say we need jobs and stuff. But don't worry about economics and wealth. We will deal with that. Non-economic liberalism. This is why the whole civil rights struggle was misdirected by this inherently Jewish philosophy. So with all of the strives that our people went through, all the marches, all the protests, all the getting beat up, sitting on counters, trying to use the bathroom in a segregated bathroom, all of that did not focus on doing something for ourselves. They gained more rights. We lost more. So reports came out recently that, look, black people are in worse condition than we were 50 years when Dr. King was fighting. We have less land ownership, less real black businesses, because they misdirected our movement. I'm reminded of the Holy Quran that talks about how Satan appears as a sincere advisor. He loves advising us how we should protest, how we should become free from them. Let y'all think about that. Even our black movements today, you know, some of these movements are organic, which they call grassroots organizations, because out of the suffering of a people, you'll find that people emerge, you know, movements start to take place. They call them grassroots movements. But the enemy is so powerful and so clever that they set up fake movements that appear to be grassroots. I'm reminded of some words that our great sister, the national spokesperson for the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, Sister Dr. Ava Muhammad, stated. She stated years ago that the white man is so clever that he becomes the leader of his own opposition. Think about that. See, some of these movements you think are grassroots movements, it's the enemy behind it trying to make it seem like it's a real protest movement. They have staged protests. So it's not really grassroots. Grassroots, just like real grass, is organic. It comes up from the earth, from a natural motion. But these new fake movements, they call them astroturfing. You know, astroturf, it looks like grass, but it's synthetic, man-made. So you think some of these movements are really, really being funded by blacks, and you wonder why these billionaire Jews like George Soros starting to fund so-called black movements. Is he really interested in Black Lives Mattering? A Talmudic Jew who believes that you really have monkeys? Who believes that your soul, your intelligence belongs to them? Why would he put forth millions of dollars to a movement unless he's going to control and misdirect it? Y'all better think with me today. And why is it that so many of those real Black Lives Matter activists end up dead? Like Darian Seals, who was one of those ones that started exposing how this funny money started misdirecting the Black Lives Matter movement. All of a sudden, Darian Seals ends up dead, shot and burned in a car. Another brother, I saw an article headline just the other day that says about 5 or 6 of these prominent Black Lives Matter activists in the Ferguson, St. Louis area all of a sudden end up dead. So the minister told you, man, yes, they exercise extraordinary control, and black people will never be free in this country unless they are free of that kind of control. This is what we have to realize. We are not going to be free. You can protest all you want, but unless you're really going to attack the real core satanic power that run this thing, you ain't talking about nothing. Just be real. Your schooling, your religion, don't come talking about me about all this deliverance and all that type of stuff, and you ain't even dealing with the real enemy that's causing hell on earth. I don't need that kind of religion. You don't need that kind of religion. Hell, you don't need that kind of education if it can't help you do something for yourself. Speaking of education, who controls the curriculum? If Satan deceives the whole world, he got to control the curriculum, right? You got to control public education. That don't mean that just because black teachers are in there or black people sitting on the board, that don't mean nothing. You still follow the satanic framework unwittingly. Don't you know that in the early 1900s, black folks were trying to do something for themselves? And all around the country, we had our own black medical and law schools. We had one right here in Memphis. From like early 1900s up to around 1919 or so. Right there off Macklemore. It was called the University of West Tennessee. Started by a black man, Dr. Miles Link. School that graduated over 200 health professionals, y'all. You ain't even never heard about that, did you? Right off Macklemore, over there by Stacks. Yeah. But you know what happened to most of these medical schools around the country, the black ones? And there were many. A Jew, Mr. Abraham Flexner, set up the new standards whereby all medical schools had to operate by. So since they determined the standards, they determined what the curriculum has to be. If your medical school does not follow our standards, they would have to be shut down. And since the black medical schools all throughout the country did not follow their standards, they had to be closed down, y'all. All of them closed with the exception of 2 nationally. And that was Howard and Meharry Medical. Because a Jew set up the framework, set up the parameters, set up the pedagogy. Hello, somebody. I got some educators in here, right? So they didn't have to be right there physically saying, look, you have to shut down this school and follow my way. No, they set up the laws and the policies and the framework that you have to operate by. And don't you know, we're talking about higher ed and education. The Jews have inserted themselves. Look how they position themselves, y'all. Did you know that on an academic level, the father of black African studies is considered a Jew? Oh, you didn't know that, did you? Oh, yes. On a collegiate level of higher learning, all of your so-called authentic Africana studies in higher education has to in some way be influenced by or approved by what Melville Herskovitz set up. He's considered the father of black history. It's 2 of them, both Jews. He and Franz Boas. You never heard of them, have you? But you know what? When you deal with so-called African studies in colleges, you have to go through some of their approved curriculum. Look it up. I'm going to go through some of these, but look up some of these names when you get a chance. How the hell did a Jew become? Now, to hell with all Dr. J.A. Rogers. Yeah. To hell with all of these greats. To hell with W.E.B. Du Bois. Right. To hell with Chancellor Williams. Right. So, no, that don't mean nothing, because remember, your intelligence belongs to me. Your soul belongs to me. Your moral powers belong to me. That means nothing. Besides, the life of all you Negroes is not worth the hair on the head of one Jew. So I'm the father of Africana studies. You want to learn about Africa on an academic level? You go through me. What you gonna do about it? And you wonder why we blind, deaf, and dumb. But hell, y'all gonna think I'm making this up. You ever notice how they don't, for the most part, allow the Nation of Islam to come on the college campuses too much? Even if they're having a discussion about the Nation of Islam or Malcolm X, they will let anybody come but us. But hold up, did you know that a Jew is the leading expert on the Nation of Islam in academia? Thank you for listening. I'm through. Have a good night. Unbelievable. So, all of these scholars in the Nation of Islam. Here you are in the Nation of Islam, been through, you studied the teachings, you know the history, but no, we cannot. You don't know anything. We are the experts. So Herbert Berg, look, Dimitri has books, authentic books using primary sources of the Nation of Islam and our history. I have books dealing with the primary sources of the Nation of Islam. Do you think our books are on the college campus? Hell, we got world scholars afraid to even talk to us. That's right. But no, you can't have no representatives of the nation talk about the nation. If you want to learn about the nation, you're a black person, you go through the Jew. And you wonder why you're not allowed in public education to even make real comparisons of our Holocaust to the Jewish Holocaust. Have any of you noticed that? It is strongly discouraged for educators to publicly give a critical analysis or comparative analysis of the Jewish Holocaust to the African Holocaust, of which Jews played a most prominent role in, by the way. Because if you really do the study, you'll find that our Holocaust is at least 100 times worse than theirs. And you will learn that they played a most primary role in the institution of the transatlantic slave trade. Jewish merchants were the orchestrators of this. The Jewish Babylonian Talmud is what justified and guided the transatlantic slave trade. And if you even talk about it on the college campus, it's disallowed. You are directly considered anti-Semitic. Many professors nationwide have been fired just for dealing with this type of history. We're dealing with the attack on black minds. Am I boring you? No, sir. And while we're on that Holocaust term, did you know that Jews consider it blasphemous to even make a comparison and use the term Holocaust? Right. To refer to anything besides the Jewish Holocaust? But I found out not too long ago that that term Holocaust was already being used to describe the horrors of what was happening to black people during and after slavery. Right here in a Memphis-based newspaper in 1875, I came across an article where they were referring to the lynchings and stuff and atrocities taking place among black people, and they referred to it as a Negro Holocaust. Came across some other old archives and newspapers when they were describing black people. There was even a white preacher who used the term Negro Holocaust to describe what was taking place among us. Now, this is before World War II or Nazi Germany ever even came about. Even Ida B. Wells in 1909 in a public lecture She used that term to describe what was taking place to us in terms of the lynchings and the lynchings of a few white people. She described it as a Holocaust. So where do Jews get off saying that you can't use this term unless you're talking about the Jewish Holocaust? You see the arrogance? And you wonder why they hate the Nation of Islam so much. Here we have the great W.E.B. Du Bois, perhaps our leading black intellectual, one of the first graduates of Harvard. You know, he wrote in his most prominent book, The Souls of Black Folk. W.E.B. Du Bois, based on his firsthand observations, he was traveling throughout the South, and you know what he noticed? Now, be mindful, he was a friend of Jews, by the way. He noticed that as black people were being exploited during and after Reconstruction, he noticed that most of this exploitation was taking place by Jewish immigrants. The sharecropping, which, by the way, is inherently Talmudic. The first terminology of sharecropping comes from the Talmud. That was a Jewish venture, which is basically slavery. But W.E.B. Du Bois, in the original publication of The Souls of Black Folks, he highlighted how Jews were the main exploiters of blacks several times. However, before the 50th anniversary of his book, his Jewish friends pressured him, and they made him pretty much change all of those references to Jews. He had to change the language. So you don't hear nothing about Jews anymore in it. Now it says things like the immigrants. That's control over black minds. We're going to get ready and close out, y'all. So the Nation of Islam has become the primary target because it is the Nation of Islam who is the primary entity that stands between the satanic white power structure and the lives of black people rising to accept who God has them to become. And they recognize that. That's why you don't have another leader or organization that receives the brunt of what we are going through. But you know what? Here's the really amazing part. The nation has endured the most virulent attacks that the world's most powerful government has to offer. But the nation's still here. That is a freaking miracle. If you have as much sense as I know you do, that should let you know in the most realistic terms that God has to be with these brothers and sisters you call the Nation of Islam. Look, ain't nobody been through this. You talk about some people who literally been through hell with a gasoline jacket on and still standing up, becoming even bolder. Man, please. Look, y'all better get with this thing, I'm telling you. But look, even here on a local level, one of the most powerful Jewish organizations, the ADL, now they, according to their own words, advise and train every law enforcement agency in America. The same law enforcement that profiles and kills black people on a dime, it's ADL training, Jewish training, okay? So the ADL, the same ones that call Minister Farrakhan the leading black anti-Semite, you may have realized that a few months ago, we were looking on their website trying to get some information. We're researchers. This is what we do. And lo and behold, we found some of us on there. They had me, Brother Dimitri, Dr. Wesley, where the enemy is profiling your brothers. So the mere fact that the world's powerful enemy, Satan, is shook up based on some little stuff that we're trying to do, it's like, oh, okay, all right. We consider that an honor. Look, that's like the Black Revolutionary Grammys or something like that. You know what I mean? I saw my name and Brother Dimitri's name. I'm like, you know what? I want to thank my wife. I want to thank my family, my producers. It means so much to me. Satan, we're coming after you. Watch yourself, partner. We're coming after you. But they are so adamant about making sure that the minister and his representatives, the followers, the students, are not heard because that light shines so bright that Satan can't block the light from the minds of the people. So look at the power and control they have. Y'all remember when Minister Farrakhan's documentary was about to be released on Netflix? Keep in mind that this was a documentary that was strictly based on the minister's musical career and some of his life's journey and how that relates to his musical career. It wasn't even dealing with all the controversial stuff, just a beautiful documentary of a beautiful man. But because Jews have so much influence in that world, and because they did not want the public to see the man for who he truly is, because it would totally go against this old demonic character that they've tried to paint the minister to be. So a day before it was supposed to be released on Netflix, based on a contractual agreement, mind you, all the Jewish leader, Rabbi Marvin Heyer, all he had to do was make a phone call to Netflix and say, look, you better not show that documentary of Farrakhan. And Netflix capitulated. That's some power right there, y'all. But the point that I'm still trying to get you to make sure you see is that what is it about the truth represented by the nation and the minister that they do not want black people to hear? You see? It is obviously the truth that Jesus said that will make you free. So that control over black thinking is so desperate that after Minister Farrakhan gave a powerful 4-hour and 5-minute lecture enlightening the public this past Savior's Day, the enemy had no comeback. The minister had all these facts laid out. He exposed the Jewish Talmud. He enlightened the people of God as to who you truly are. He even let the people know who and what the Messiah is. Amen, somebody. So the Jews, with all their power, had no comeback. And they never had any comeback. So you know what they do? They use their leveraging power in the media and in the industries they control. So right after the minister gave his message, just a few days later, in fact, on Savior's Day, February 26th, during Black History Month, Amazon banned the sales and distribution of Black history books, most notably the Nation of Islam's research team group entitled The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, volumes 1, 2, and 3, and the book entitled Jews Selling Blacks. Now, they've literally banned Black history books during Black History Month on Amazon. You can read porn. In fact, Sister Jill, you can buy sex dolls specifically designed for pedophiles on Amazon. Sex dolls that resemble little damn girls, man. But that's free trade. But information? See, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told you the ultimate aim of this world is to destroy the messenger of truth and those who follow him. Let me put it in biblical terms. The ultimate aim of Satan's world is to pinpoint and destroy the real Messiah. I'm going to let that marinate. Because Satan knows that it is the Messiah that his main job. Aside from exposing people to the truth of God, one of the Messiah's primary jobs is to destroy, is to identify, expose Satan, and help bring him down with the truth. Oh, look, man, I hope somebody hear me today. Everybody claim they love Malcolm X? Ooh, I realized the time. I'm going to get ready to close out, y'all. My goodness. Malcolm stated, and this is why they called him the #1 anti-Semite of his day. He said, the Jews believe in censorship more than anybody else. All you've got to do is talk about Jews, and you'll find out that all the papers will close up on you. They can't take it. They can't take any criticism. They're the most sensitive white people on this earth. They don't like you to talk about them, but they want to talk about everybody else. Now, for all our people that claim you love Malcolm, but really don't follow him, for those who claim you Malcolmites and all this type of stuff, do I hear you quoting this part of Malcolm?
No, sir. No, sir.
Because you're hypocrites. Let's move forward. You know, there's a saying that's been attributed to the French philosopher Voltaire that goes like this. It says, to learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize. If you want to find out who really has control over you and over politics and all of this, just find out who you can't criticize. So you notice how it has become and is becoming illegal to criticize Israel and white Jewish wrongdoing. See, this is drapetomania 2.0. Drapetomania, that disease, that disorder where something wrong with you if you want to be free from white folks' control. This is it. In 2019, all kind of laws are being placed and bills being placed in Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, trying to make it illegal to even criticize Israel. So you notice all the backlash taking place with all of our strong sisters, those newly elected sisters that's not going along with all the conventional politics. That sister, Representative Ilhan Omar out of Minnesota, Sister Rashida Tlaib, you know, Muslim sister too. Then our Hispanic sister, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. A lot of backlash from the white power structure in Congress. Their colleagues are coming out against them, calling them anti-Semitic. What did they do? What did they do? They criticized the wrongdoing of Israel. Now, Israel has violated more UN violations than any nation on earth. Literally, this an apartheid regime, killing and destroying the Palestinians, killing and destroying the African, the other Jews, the real Jews of Africa, the Falasha Jews, forcing genocide and sterilization on our people. But if you say something about it, how dare you? Because your soul, your intelligence belongs to us. So everybody getting backlash. And we're going to close out because this is what it's all boiling down to. It's right there in your scriptures. Just make sure you don't think this is 4,000 years ago. Make sure you know the difference between history and prophecy. See, Pharaoh, who had God's people in bondage, this is in the Holy Quran, letting you know what Pharaoh feared. Pharaoh said, leave me to slay Moses and let him call upon his Lord. Surely I fear that he will change your religion or that he will make mischief appear in the land. See, he's going to cause some trouble. He's disturbing our system of white supremacy. And I fear that he will change your religion. So this is why they fear Minister Farrakhan. And it's not your religion in the traditional sense. He's talking about somebody that's going to change your way of thinking out of their control. With a new mind, a new truth that will make our people free. So now this anger that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that because you are awakening, they see that Minister Farrakhan and what he represents is reaching people, all in Congress. People probably never even met Minister Farrakhan. But you see that boldness, that Farrakhan-like boldness taking place. They're criticizing Israel. They're standing up against the white power structure. But the enemy sees Farrakhan at the root. So just like Pharaoh did in the scriptures, when he saw that God was setting his people free, he didn't say, okay, praise the Lord. What did Pharaoh want to do? He wanted to go after God's people and kill them before they could be free. Because he knew the promise of God was on God's people. They know who you are. They know that you are the real chosen people of God. But before you come into the real mindset of who you truly are, they want to make sure that you are destroyed before you even get a chance to reach your divine potential. So why the hell have Israeli, American, Jewish leaders and Israeli leaders gotten together and claimed, how absurd is this, that black youth, American black youth, are Israel's problem? What the hell do black youth in America have to do with Israel? We don't affect none of Israel's policies. Hell, we don't affect America's policy. Oh, your average black youth don't even know nothing about Israel. They couldn't even find it on the map. Let's be real, y'all. But in their mind, you, black folks, especially black youth, you are our problem. Why? Because you are waking up. And we got to stop you. And we got to stop the man that's waking you up. So they wrote that Minister Louis Farrakhan is the only black American leader, or perhaps any American leader, who possesses the amount of clout to summon that many black people to Washington, D.C., or anywhere else for that matter, knowing that they would come by the hundreds of thousands. So here's the man that they know is at the root. They know that this Nation of Islam is the source behind this ultimate awakening. But you know what? The good thing about it is that we are actually going to be the winners. So I'm reminded, oh yeah. Oh yeah. So with all of our intelligence, with our moral powers, with our soul, with our names, our lifestyles, we've been so tied up and caught up in Satan's world. But I'm reminded of Jesus in the scriptures. Y'all know that parable when he saw a donkey and a young horse tied, and he told his disciples, look, I want you to go and untie the donkey and the colt. It may look crazy at first, but if anybody asks you what you're doing, just tell them that the master has need of you. Huh? I don't see how a donkey and a colt being tied together is going to save anybody. But the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has let us know that this donkey and this colt represent the masses of black people. The donkey represents the more working class black people who may not have the college degrees, those of us who trying to make ends meet, maybe in the streets, maybe in and out of prisons, you know, you blue collar, you just trying to get it together. But with all of your strivings, you still tied to the white man's world. But the colt represents the young, intelligent, college degree, professional class of black America. You may be wealthy. You may have all of these degrees and resources, but you still tied to the white man's world. But you know the master has need of you. So Minister Farrakhan, like that messianic figure that you read about, is calling all black people, freeing you from the white man's world. Look at your brother. You know I have to give a testimony before I leave out of here. I'm blessed. Allah's blessing your brother. Be mindful of the same dude that failed English in the white man's school 3 times. Had to go to summer school 3 years in a row now just to graduate on time. But because the master untied me, now we got world scholars running from the truth brought by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I ain't the only one. Look at all the rest of these. We got testimonies now. I'm reminded of my brother Dimitri. Brother got world scholars running from him. Brother Dimitri growing up used to literally pick cotton in Mississippi, y'all. Excuse my expression, but a former cotton picker has Satan upset because of Farrakhan. He's untying the masses, y'all. So we want to free you, and I'm going to ask you with your intelligence, based on what you heard today, you know it's the truth. I don't even have to ask you that. You know, I don't want to sound arrogant, but you Lord knows. I mean, when the facts are presented, you know, you would have to do more work in your mind to try to disagree with the truth than just accepting it. But with the obvious truth that's been given, that's not good enough. The thing is, at a certain point, we have to let the master that God has put before us, let him free us. We have to now use our resources, use whatever skills that we have to help build God's kingdom. That's why the master has need of them. See, the white folks are using you for their purpose, but God has a divine purpose for you. So I'm going to close right there. Brothers and sisters, I thank you for giving me this time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for all of that as I greet you as I came before you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, fam.